my career's kind of taken an interesting path. I've always written in the Regency era, in Regency Napoleonic era, basically in early 19th century, mostly England and Scotland, some in other parts of Europe. But I started out writing what are called Regency romances in collaboration with my mother, whose name was Joan Grant. We wrote as Anthea Malcolm. And Regency romances are sort of a subset of the romance genre, which tend to have a lot of comedy of manners, a lot of dealing with the sort of social constraints of the era and how those kind of frame the lives of the characters. We went on from there to write historical romances, which were still set in the Regency era, but the books were longer, there was more adventure. We wrote a book set mostly in Spain and Portugal during the Peninsular War called Dark Angel. We wrote a book called Shores of Desire. Well, actually, I wrote Shores of Desire on my own after my mother had died, which dealt with the Battle of Waterloo and then Paris after Waterloo. And all through this, even our very first book, my mother and I wrote, The Widow's Gambit, had a very sort of slight mystery subplot. And the mystery elements in the books there grew to be more and more of them as time went on. And there was sort of more and more pulling in real historical events. My mother and I wrote a book about the divorce trial of Queen Caroline, who was George IV's wife, the Prince Regent. And he tried to divorce her after he became king. There was Shores of Desire dealing with Waterloo. My book, Rightfully His, dealt with the early, very, very early days of railroads. My book, Shadows of the Heart, dealt with the industrial unrest in northern England. So I realized finally what I really wanted to write was a historical novel with a lot of suspense in it, and with a love story, but outside of the romance genre, because it really wasn't going to be completely driven by the love story. So that was when I wrote Daughter of the Game, which is now being reissued as Secrets of a Lady, and then Beneath the Silent Moon, and my subsequent books are that's sort of the shape of them, that they're still set in the Regency era. They still have love stories in them, but they're more driven by the history and the suspense element.